How do I make a parenthetical citation in an essay?
All right. So I am actually in the process of writing out a few sample works cited entries so that we can kind of talk about these. So hold on just a second. I'm just trying to make some entries here. All right. Let's do 20. Okay, so if you can actually, if we can see my computer screen here. I'm going to show you some examples of works cited entries because you've got to have your works cited entries complete before you can start doing your parenthetical citations. So just to kind of quickly talk to you about how you want to come up with these. Whenever you are researching a topic, make sure that you're keeping a list of all of your sites that you're using, websites or other sources. Nowadays we can use mostly internet sites so that you don't get yourself in a predicament by not keeping track of these things. I would always recommend that if you are using something online, print it and print it right from the source. Don't do a copy and paste, because when you print it right from the web page, you're going to get the great information at the bottom that shows the date that you accessed it, which is very important to add to your works cited entry. You're also going to have typically the publishing information, the date it was published, all of those things. And if it's missing any of that, it may not be a credible source, but that's something we can talk about later. If again, I know we were just on my screen. If you can look at my screen again, because I did these quickly, these aren't exactly in correct works cited format. You would want to indent your second and subsequent lines of each entry. But this is a good way to show you the word or phrase that you would put into your parenthetical citation. So if you had a sentence or a quote or some information, anything paraphrased, anything word for word that you get from another source that's not your own brain, has to be cited. You cite it at the end of your paper on your works cited, and you cite it parenthetically in the essay. So let's say we have a quote from this Library of Congress Afghanistan country study. That's my first link on my computer screen. What you would put in parentheses, and I'll do it down here at the bottom, is going to be the first word of the entry, which here is United. And that is also, doesn't have a page number, it doesn't look like. But if there was a page number, it would go right in there. So let's just say it was on page 9. It goes in parentheses. And then at the very end goes your punctuation mark. Okay, I'll make this a little bit bigger for you. For some reason, it's not very big. Punctuation always goes at the end. So if you had a quote, blah, 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 quotation marks, and the punctuation goes at the end. So there was a question earlier in today's broadcast about when punctuation marks are not enclosed in quotation marks. This would be another example. If you're doing a parenthetical citation, the period goes at the end of the parentheses. If we were going to cite in the paper this Jane Kirtley, notice that Kirtley is the very first word of our entry. So you would have your quote or paraphrase. Again, if you can see my screen, I'm just kind of playing with this. Paraphrases aren't going to be in quotation marks, but you still got it from Jane Kirtley. She's the first word of the entry, so that is what goes in the parentheses. That's how you would do the parenthetical citation for that. Same thing with if you were quoting something or citing something from Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451, personal favorite. You would have the quote here, something about Montauk doing something, and you would have Bradbury in the quotation marks. This is a book, so there definitely are page numbers. So you would put his last name, a space, the page number, no PG, no P, no number sign, no nothing. That's exactly what it would look like if you can see my computer screen right there. The author's last name, which is the first word of the entry, the page number, end parentheses, and a period at the end. So I hope that helped you out with that question. If you have any specific questions about what you are citing for your own paper, please feel free to email us or call us with that question. But thanks very much for that, Mark.
All right, thank you, Whitney. Let's go to Luigi again and see what is going on with our social media board.
Yet again, we have another question here for Ms. McCabe. Can you explain what I need to put in the opening paragraph of a persuasive paper?
Okay, so this is pretty much standard. We don't need to see my computer screen for this. Any essay that you're writing, your introduction should introduce your paper and your topic. Some of the tips that I use, especially if you're going to be writing a pretty good essay, each paragraph should have at least 5 sentences. So we can kind of break it down like this. Every time you write an essay, the introductory paragraph, the very first sentence needs to grab our attention. It's the very first thing that your teacher or your peer editors are going to read. You kind of think about it as a speech too, because you might be giving a persuasive speech. You could write it out in essay form first. So you want to grab the audience's attention with the very first sentence. Grab our attention by asking us a question, giving us something to start thinking about. It could be any kind of attention grabber, and there are various ways to do this. Your second, third, and fourth sentences, after you've grabbed our attention, should talk about the main points in your paper. If you're doing a 5-paragraph essay, you're going to have 3 body paragraphs. If you're doing a persuasive essay, you're going to have 3 arguments that are going to persuade us to follow what you're trying to get us to do or persuade us to do. So your second, third, and fourth sentences could be your main arguments, okay? Grab our attention, then tell us what your main arguments are going to be. The very last sentence of your persuasive essay's introduction should be your thesis statement. And remember, a good thesis statement is going to have a couple of different sides that can be addressed through your arguments, and it should be fairly short. So a thesis statement for a persuasive essay on who was a better president from Abraham Lincoln or John F. Kennedy, your thesis statement might be something like, John F. Kennedy was a better president than Abraham Lincoln. And that's it. You don't want to have any because those are actually going to be your arguments. He was a better president because A, B, and C, your main arguments. So in your introduction to your persuasive essay, grab our attention, tell us what you're going to say in your 3 arguments, and end with your thesis statement, and you should have a pretty good introductory paragraph.